All right, this is chapter 8, lesson 5. You do not have to write down all of the vocabulary. The only thing I want you to write down here, if you will, please, is the objective, of course. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And the only vocabulary I want you to write down is the vocabulary for congruent. So, we already know that two lines are congruent if they have the same size. And we know two angles are congruent if their angles are the same. So if you have two angles that one is 25 degrees and the other one is 25 degrees, then they're congruent. So, two polygons, meaning shapes on a plane figure, so squares, triangles, trapezoids, pentagons, all the shapes that we've been learning about lately. Polygons are congruent if their corresponding sides and their corresponding angles are congruent. So what that means is two polygons, meaning two of the same shape. They're congruent if all their corresponding angles are congruent and all their corresponding sides are congruent, and we'll see what that looks like in a second. So for now, just write down both of these, okay? So this is what this looks like now. This is congruency, okay? So let me show you now. I'm starting off easy. These are two triangles, the exact same size, and they're facing the exact same direction. So you're going to write here the example, the congruent statement. Please draw this, okay? All of this I want you to have. Corresponding angles and sides, we're going to name them, all right? So what this means here now is I'm going to use a different color to highlight so that you can see what I'm talking about. Line AB here, this line, corresponds to line DE here. Those are corresponding sides. Okay? Now I'll change color so that you can see it clearly. Line BC here corresponds to line EF here. Okay? And the last one, line AC here, is that the same color? Looks the same color. Corresponds to DF here. Okay? So these are the corresponding sides. The corresponding angles you can also see by the marks that I've placed here. So I'm going to use a marker to show you what I'm talking about again. I'll use a different color, blue. How about that? So this angle here, angle A, corresponds to angle D here. Okay? Angle B, now I'm using two lines to just show you that it's different from angle A. So this is the second one. And angle B corresponds to angle E here. Those are congruent. And angle C here corresponds to angle F here. Those are congruent. So the corresponding angles and sides are congruent. So the congruent statement here says that, whoops, sorry about that. Let me get rid of that. Okay. The congruent statement here says that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So you can see those two triangles are congruent. Now, in order to prove it, in order for me to prove it to someone, I need to state that all of those sides that I told you about, that they are congruent. So, in stating it, I'm going to say, let me get rid of this real quick. Angle A in triangle ABC is congruent to angle D in triangle DEF. Angle B is congruent to angle E. And the last angle, C, is congruent to angle F. So angle A is congruent to angle D. Angle B is congruent to angle E. Angle C is congruent to angle F. And Cynthia asked yesterday, and I thought it was such a good question, but how do you know? Do you measure them? How do you know they're the same size? Well, I know it because the mark tells me. So remember, I just made that little mark for you? this mark, because there's one here and there's one here, that tells me those two are the same size. Because there's two here, I look in the other triangle to see if there's anywhere where there's two. Yes, right there. That means those are the same size. And I look here, there's 3 marks here. I see if there's another angle with 3 marks here. If there is, then yes, those are the same size. So that's how I know they're congruent. No, I did not actually measure them. Here, now we're going to talk about the lines. So here, line AB is congruent to line DE. So again, line AB is congruent to line DE. And how do I know? Again, Cynthia, I'm looking at these lines here. I have a mark here. Where else do I have one mark like that? Right here. That means those two lines are equal. Okay? They're congruent. And line BC is congruent to line EF. So BC has 2 marks, as you can see right here. Line EF has 2 marks. That means they're the same size. They're congruent. Line AC is congruent to DF. Line AC has 3 marks. Line DF also has 3 marks. That means they're congruent. So now my corresponding angles and sides, all of my angles in triangle ABC are equal to my angles in DEF. And all the sides are equal. Now my congruent statement says, if these angles are equal and if these sides are equal, then these two triangles are also equal or congruent. Okay? All right. So now, I think that's all I wanted to do with you guys today. Okay, that is all the lesson I have for you, but now what I want to do is I just want to do one guided practice with you, okay? And I want you to notice something here. I want you to notice that these two triangles are not facing the same direction. They've been turned around. So you have to be very careful and make sure you pay attention to which side of the triangle goes with which other side of the other triangle. Because like I said, these have been turned around, they're not in the same position. So for instance, in the first triangle, line MP is here. Is it in the same place on the second triangle? No, instead it's over here. Okay? Now because its sides are equal, I can say line MP is congruent to line SR. Okay? Let's find another line that's congruent. So I'm looking at this one is congruent to this one. They both have 2 marks. So again, they're not in the same place, but they're both congruent. So now I can make another statement that line MN is congruent to the same size as RT. Or TR, it doesn't matter however you want to say it, okay? And next, the last line, is it also congruent? Yes, it is. It has 3 marks, and this one also has 3 marks. That means they're the same size. So I can say that line PN is congruent to line ST. Okay, so now let's look at, So let's look at the angles. So I see that I have an angle here with 1 mark. Do I have another one on the other triangle? The same. Yes, right here. That means those two are equal. So what that means then is angle P in the first triangle is congruent to angle S in the second triangle. And do I see another one? Yes, I see that the one with 2 marks here. Is there one with 2 marks in the other triangle? Yes, it's here. So that means those two angles are also congruent. So angle M in the first triangle is congruent to angle R in the second triangle. And then finally, I have one more here with 3 marks. And do I have another one with 3 marks here? Yes, right here. That means those are congruent. So that means angle N is congruent to angle T. Since all the angles and all the sides are congruent, then my congruent statement is right here, saying that triangle MNP is congruent to triangle MNP RTS. And by the way, I try to write the letters in the same order. So if you notice here, the letter M came first. So I look at M, it has 2 marks. So I'm going to find the same one here, 2 marks R. That's why I wrote my R first. The next one, N, is the one with 3 marks. So I'm going to write mine as T, the other one with 3 marks. So that's why I wrote the T next. And P is the one with 1 mark. So I'm going to write S last. Okay? So I'm just writing them in the same order, and that's kind of like math grammar, okay? So this is what you're doing on in the book on the page that we're going to do tomorrow during class. So make sure you understand this, okay? And Alan, I'm going to be asking you about congruence tomorrow, so make sure you're prepared to answer with that definition that you wrote down on the first slide of tonight's video. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.